Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell. In this video we're going to look at different strategies to manage change effectively. That's one of the points in the study design. We have to look at sort of what we call high risk and low risk strategies. So, before we get into it, if we look at, we've spoken a lot about resistance and how stakeholders, especially employees, can resist change. We're going to look really at employees here mainly and how to overcome that resistance to change so that, employees resist change because they can, I suppose, feel isolated, fear of the unknown, fear of job security, whether they're going to keep their jobs, whether they're going to be able to perform at their job with the change, and all those kind of things. They may feel frustrated that these changes being forced upon them, so all those things create resistance. And so managing the change effectively is really crucial to overcoming that resistance and ensuring that the change is successful, so that once it's been implemented, we can really embed it in the culture and make it a real success for the organization. And as I said before, that possible strategies for managing change, we fit into two categories. We have low risk strategies and we have high risk strategies, and we'll get into each one of those. So we'll start off with the low risk strategies. The first strategy we've got here is two-way communication, being open and honest about the change so that employees or even the stakeholders, depending on who you have to talk about in a question, fully understand the change and its impact. That can help gain support. So answering any questions. So remember, it's not just one-way communication. We're just telling them. That's important that they're notified and they fully understand what it is and the impact it's going to have, but also answering any questions about the change. That's also really important. So, employees being able to, come to a manager's office, or, just being able to ask in a open forum, what about this? What about that? And then the manager or the leader being really open and honest about those actual changes. That's one low risk strategy. Participation, so involving employees in the change process can help get them on board. Really, it's based on the idea that it's more difficult to resist decisions based on change if the employees have been part of the decision-making process. So trying to involve the employees in decision-making in the change can really help. Is what we call a low-risk strategy. Is going to cause less resistance and I suppose less problems with the change. Another low-risk strategy, support. This is, I suppose, looking at the support for the employees when those that are affected by the change. So, once they've actually implementing the change, they need support. That could include training, counselling, support finding new employment, all those kind of things in terms of maybe, it depends on the scenario and what the change is. So if it's going to be, we're implementing technology and they need to learn how to use that, then giving them time to get used to it, providing plenty of training. If it's restructure and there's lots of people going to lose their jobs, then again, all those things that we went through in termination in terms of helping them find new employment, provide career counselling, career advice, all those kind of things. So, providing support, depending what kind of support is actually required, will depend on the actual scenario that's been given. Now, the last low-risk strategy that we're going to go through is negotiation. So agreements can be struck between management and employees to ensure that the change, ensure they support the change. So negotiation can empower the employees and enhance their support for the change. So that's the final low-risk strategy there. And high-risk strategies, we've got manipulation, so gaining support from employees by selecting the use of facts or deception. High risk because, it might work. However, once the employees find out they've been manipulated, then obviously that can cause even more resistance, more conflict, industrial action, all those really negative things that can happen, which, will make it difficult for the change to be successful. So, gaining support by saying, look, these are the benefits of the change, but not forgetting, but purposely leaving out the negatives or the negative impacts that the change may occur, which could be, job losses or something like that. Threatening, forcing employees to embrace the change or receive retribution. So possible threats like retrenchment, loss of promotion, demotion, loss of working conditions, all those kind of things. Obviously, that could get the employees to toe the line and embrace the change. However, that would probably just be on the surface, and then underlying the surface, there's probably going to be a lot of negative thoughts from the employees, which again could cause resistance, reduce productivity, and increase staff turnover and all those negative things. And cooptation involves the selection of an influential person among the potential resistors to be involved in the development and implementation of the change process. Now, that on its own sounds really positive. However, that role that they play is only symbolic and really carries very little authority. So they don't, yes, they're involved, just almost, as a symbol to say, well, all those resistors, we've got one of your own in here to help make decisions, but really that person isn't involved in any decision making, has no authority. They're just there at face value, so don't have really any input, and that's obviously high risk, because if that's found out that, all right, we've got someone representing us, but really it's not any representation at all, and then obviously that can cause all those negative effects again. So just to recap, strategies for effective change, we've got our low risk, our two-way communication, participation, support and negotiation, and our high risk of manipulation, threats and cooptation. So just be thinking about, all right, what are the real benefits of using a low risk and I suppose also high risk, might mean that we can implement the change much quicker. However, what are also the drawbacks of especially those high risk ones, so that if you have to discuss any of those strategies, you can. So for questions, activities and more on this video, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.